Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Hearn. I haven't done a Back to the Basic program since after November when the Republicans got elected, when I did a nice program and showed you how to approach managing from the Finance Board by objectives, by exception, and how to get things done and get things moving back for the town again. Tonight, I'm here because I think I'm going to vote yes for this new budget. I think it's real important that we get as many yes votes as we can, and I'll try to give you some of the reasoning for that tonight as I go along. So, I will give you the bottom line first at the beginning of the program, because I know sometimes people say to me, Brian, make it short and sweet because we got other things to do. We want to see something else, a ball game or whatever, or go out to dinner or whatever. So I'm going to give you a little 10-15 minute introduction. Then I'll go through more detail during the program, and then we'll see what we can do. I will give you the bottom line of this program. Bottom line, that's a business expression. Now, so those that want to move on to other activities can do so. This program will be repeated again next week on Thursday night, 7:30, 8:30. I will then proceed to more detail to give an indication of the depth of the Humpty Winstead. You know Humpty Dumpty. Well, right now this is Humpty Winstead financial problem and the steps necessary to put Humpty Winstead back together again. We'll be talking about that tonight. I will also repeat this next week on Thursday from 7:30, 8:30 in Tom Bowles' former time slot as a tribute to him, what he was trying to achieve, and his friends and followers. I will ask Charter to rerun my first post-election Back to the Basics program, where I explained the necessity for management by objectives, as I said, management by exception, and especially the critical path management, where decisions have to get made in a timely manner to achieve success and get things done. The next annual town budget referendum, as you see on the sign there, will be held on Saturday, May 31st at the Pearson School from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please attend and vote, as this is considered by many a very important step on the road to recovery by our extremely capable and extremely strong new finance board. I'll explain a little about that later when I get into the more detail. They really need this. We don't want to go through 8 or 9 referendums. Won't be able to spend the money on the roads if we keep going back to referendums. So let's get this approved. Let's keep going with the roads. Let's continue what we were doing this year with the roads. And let's move on. If you're happy about the progress so far with the Hollerberg Bridge getting repaved and opening the Bridge Street, some repaving done there as well, and other areas of the town being repaired similarly, then you should vote yes on Saturday, because that's the catalyst. This year's $40,000 or so they spent to do the road work they've done just in the last few weeks is a catalyst to the $600,000 that's in the budget for next year to spend on roads. There still has to be a plan put together with milestones by the road department, town garage, and agreed by the finance board and the town manager, and that's all going to happen. So again, the next annual town budget referendum will be held on Saturday, May 31st at the Pearson School. I'll be there. My wife will be there. We'll vote from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Got to get this vote done and get on to future things. It's considered a very important step on the road to recovery by our extremely capable and very strong new finance board. Very strong, probably the strongest I've ever seen in this town and in any other town as well, which I'll explain. This budget has been crafted with a free, no extra cost, help of one of the strongest finance board leaders that this town we'll ever see, in my lifetime anyway, Marcia Sterling. She has an excellent financial education and financial industry background and ample spare time, being retired and living out in Winchester, to share her education and work experience with us as we head down the long, difficult road to returned prosperity. Let's take advantage of this opportunity. Marcia has a very strong focus on capital investment, is a graduate of Wellesley College in economics and computer science. Wellesley's a great school, Massachusetts, and has an MBA in finance from the University of Chicago, one of the best business schools in the country. We're lucky to have her. My own guess is that would cost us $350,000 to $500,000 a year for somebody of her quality if we had to pay them as a consultant. So you're getting it free. I think the only money she would get is whatever she gets for being a Selectman Finance Board member, which she probably donates. I wouldn't doubt that at all, because that's the type of person she is. The bridge that focuses on capital investment for the next budget as well is going to be about $600,000. That's how much we're going to be investing if this budget gets approved and if it passes, on fixing some important needs of the roads, and focuses the remainder of the budget on the critical town financial needs requested by the various departments. Costs have been scrutinized and sparingly controlled, managed, and controlled. Please do not be apathetic, as the needs of the community must be revitalized and its financial condition revived. This at best will take many years. We have no time for end repeat budgets, as I said earlier. The Finance Board has made the increase minimal to get this budget behind them so they can concentrate on ensuring quality for the people in town at a fair and reasonable price. She has in the past successfully advised and restructured government entities and many companies over 20 years in the financial community. With that, I'll repeat, please vote yes. I'm going to vote yes. I guess if you don't really think you should vote yes, don't do it. But let's get as many people out there from all over town, because they will all benefit by the improvements in the roads and the big jump we're going to get on doing next year's budget, which I always professed on my programs. We should get as far ahead, plan each budget for the following years as soon as we can, so that eventually we have a 1 to 3 year plan and we have time to react. If we have a long-term plan, if we start doing, as soon as this budget is passed, hopefully next week, we can get working on the next year's budget. And we must do that to force all the problems out into the earliest stage of system development and budget time, because we have a lot of unknowns right now. We have a lot of unknowns. This is a 2.8% increase. The town manager had originally asked for 8.2% increase. And this was managed back judiciously by this finance board in conjunction with the town manager and all the people in the town government that helped supply the information and help them make the decisions. A lot of people are going to get a big lift from this budget. Some people will be disappointed with it, but that's how it works. These are going to be tough decisions for quite a while. So get there on Saturday, May 31st, between 8 and 8, down at Pearson School, and vote. You'll probably be very glad you did. And you may end up saying, if the budget goes poorly and we get into a rigmarole, you'll probably say, I wish more people had come down and expressed their opinion and voted. So now we're going to look at the next slide, which is the Humpty Finance Board. I will describe the history of Humpty Finance Board crashing, just briefly. It's not all perfect. I might have missed a few things. But I wrote down a list here from memory of most of the things that happened, because I watch it pretty closely along the way. Apologize if there's any mistake here, anything forgotten. I'm sure I'll hear about it, if it is. But Winston is approaching financial bottom. Some people say we reached bottom. I don't think so yet. Some people think we're approaching financial bottom if we have not crashed already. Now, I usually tell people when they hire me, I usually insist on a 5-year contract before I retired in the last 20 years of my troubleshooting career around the world. I would tell people it's going to take 5 years. 5 years to get you back where you don't need me anymore. And I have to bring in some people to help me. I can't do it all by myself. There got to be good people in here. And they'll be proceeding with that now to replace a lot of the people that have left over the last month or two. We need to get them replaced, get good people in there that are well qualified, and then move forward. Poor financial management and inefficient spending over many years has gotten into this problem. It was exacerbated, yes, by Henry Centrella and all the things that he may or may not have done. He's pleaded guilty to some. Other people think there's more at stake. But anyway, it's time now to forget about all that. Get the right team assembled. We had some good help that chose to leave for one reason or another. Can't cry over spilled milk. What we got to do there is get some good people in, get them organized, and then manage by objectives, exception, and concentrate on the critical path. There's a lot of talk about that in the last few weeks, because Marcia is trying to look at the critical path for many reasons, some of which I'll talk about tonight. So the financial management and inefficient spending over many years got us here. Took us many years to get us here. It's going to take quite a few years to get us out. The worse shape you're in, the harder it is for the doctors to fix you. And you might lose a leg or an arm along the way. So it's best to get in there and get everything on the table as quick as we can, no matter how bad it is, or how many people don't want to hear it, or how many people want to try to hide it. You got to get it all out there. As you know, there was a theft of 2.1 to, some say, 7.0 million or so over the years. The 2.1 is over the last 5 years. 7 million, I guess, goes back longer, which they didn't have a chance to go and research, and maybe never will. We have a Moody's junk bond status, or close to it. In pretty bad shape bond-wise. We have minimal cash in the fund balance. Nobody's quite sure exactly what's there, because every week new numbers come up. Less revenue, more expenses, less in a fund balance than we thought was there. It has to be cash too, by the way, in there. And $3 million is recommended by Moody's. I can remember the days when people were talking about 5%, being about $1.5 million. But now, because we're in such deep trouble, Moody's is starting to recommend like $3 million. And there is a little plan that the town's put together over the next 4 or 5 years to try to get that fund balance up. But it may not get up as fast as they think, because when they put the plan together, they're just objectives. They don't know where they're going to get the money to do it. They have other areas too where they need to do that. So we're already finding that that's going to be kind of suspect, and we'll not be able to put enough in there each year to make those objectives that were set up in isolation from the funds that were going to be achieved. Recent water, there have been recent major water and sewer increases, 20 and 35%. Some people don't have water, like a third of the lake or so doesn't have water. They use wells, other people pay. And of course, all the sewer users, some have septics and don't have sewer. And I think when they have wells, they pay a special little tax too, so they get taxed to some extent. There's approximately $3.2 million owed to the town by the Water and Sewer Commission. That's been known for quite a while now, with an 8-year hoped for planned payback to the town, which they will in turn use to pay off some of their couple $1 million worth of debt. But the schedule is questionable now without an additional rate increase, because it turns out that perhaps not enough precaution was taken in planning the expenses for new pipes and things like that. And I did warn them at the water and sewer meeting when everybody was there that they should put money in, more money in, for maintenance over the years. And they didn't do that, didn't want to do that. So we might get another sewer and water increase here. Time will tell. That's another one of these unknowns we don't know about that might surface along the way. The last revaluation, the property values went down 20% on average, some higher, some lower. And the mill rate went up, of course, to compensate for that, because we're still spending the same amount of money, if not more. And these values may still be headed downward for the next revaluation 4 years from now. I don't see too many signs. A lot of signs that people selling lower. And last time some things were left out in our calculations that probably should have been in there, like foreclosures. There were in a lot of places in the state included foreclosures. We didn't. So the town took a little bit of a bashing on that. People who own property downtown in Winsted that was under foreclosure and all that. There's been major turnover recently in key town management team, full-time leadership. We lost after 1 year, we lost the town garage director. We lost the brand new, beautifully liked finance director. Everybody thought she did a good job, and everybody was really liked her, and we're happy to work with her. But she decided, for one reason or another, nobody really knows the exact. There's all kinds of rumors about it, but she decided to go back to her old job down in Bristol. We have temporary workers in there now helping. Thanks for that. But we still have 2 outstanding audits. We have one that's over a year late, I guess, being worked on. And we have another one due at the end of this year where the town manager says, and we'll find out over time, we'll be back, should be done by December. So we'll have 2 of those audits out of the way, but we'll believe that when we see it at the end of December. Let's hope we do it. We have to apply the resources, as I said in my last, I said it in the paper I wrote to the Charter Revision Commission that, we should get audits done on time. And if we can't get them done on time, we should move the money from somewhere else, put it on some extra help, and get these audits done. There's $12 million or so in infrastructure work built up over the many years. $12 million. We're going to take a little chunk out of it this year, before the end of June. We're going to take probably $600,000 if all goes according to budget and plan, and the budget gets approved next year. So we got a long way to go to get $12 million. And most likely for that, we will need to be able to bond. So we'll have to build up the fund balance one way or another, which won't be easy when you don't have any revenue growth. As you know, from years and years, we've been pretty flat on the revenue side, especially the recurring profitable revenue. I just saw where Torrington had an increase in the grand list last year. It was pretty good size. They still are going out for a 6% increase in taxes on top of that. So even if we get some additional recurring profitable tax revenue, if it's not enough, we'll still get increases in the budget. I think once the Finance Board proves to the unsuspecting that, and people who don't, you don't trust them, which is almost everybody, that they can manage the money properly, which certainly isn't the case now, and they'll accept small increases each year, keep up with inflation and things like that. But if they think it's being misspent on two superintendents of school and 3 or 4 different computer systems and 3 or 4 maintenance groups and all that kind of thing, then they're not going to be happy with that either. So the heat will always be on by the people that Ralph Nader encourages to speak, come forward with their ideas. They'll be looking. They'll be trying to make sure that we are running this efficiently, as will the new, strong Finance Board. Costs are escalating in many areas, in the town and the school. As you know, salaries go up, expenses go up, even if you put them out to bid, materials and things like that. In the school expenses, same way, always want to add more. They've been getting only the minimum budget requirement for the last few years, and that's helped a little bit. They have to squeeze, and still got a long way to go. They got half-empty schools and all that kind of thing. And especially in the area of health insurance for the town and the schools. My own view is that something's got to happen there. We've got to manage that. And even if we have to join with other towns and work together to get better costs, or even other states if we have to, whatever it takes. There has been, over the years, I can remember Joe Kydrain talking about it, and Pozo and everybody else, on a lack of actual transparency, because a lot of times you think you have transparency, but when you get in and do an audit, and when you examine things, it turns out to be something quite different. So we've had a lack of actual transparency in budgeting and spending over the years. Lapses in following the charter. We just had a select meeting the other night where a letter was sent by the new Finance Board and the new selectmen out to all kinds of agencies saying you got to follow the charter. Got to follow the charter. And everybody has to follow the charter. That's why we got a charter. Or try to get it changed in a responsible manner so it can be followed. And we keep it up with the state. Now, there are evolutionary steps in the charter. People keep trying to change it and add it, make it better. But what I'm talking about here is following the one that exists until you can get it changed properly at referendum, which doesn't seem easy to do nowadays. There's a definite lack of significant grand list growth. And there are people in town and at the lakes and in Winchester that have been over the years, many years, trying to retard the growth and force the town to develop in a certain way that perhaps the people who want to grow the town don't agree with. So we got a long way to go to straighten that out. And the Finance Board has to play a big role in that, and that's one of the reasons why they have to follow the charter. They are in charge of the finances of the town. And they can get information from anybody they want to in the town, preferably going through the proper channels and keeping the town manager informed. And of course, they can't micromanage, which I don't think they are doing. I've never seen them do that. That means go around the town manager and give direction to any employee. or any subcontractor or anything like that. Can't do that. That's called micromanagement. People also often get confused between management direction to the town manager from the selectmen or the Board of Finance and micromanagement. And again, I'm going to repeat that micromanagement is going to an employee of the town manager or a person that the town manager is responsible for managing and give them directions. For example, if the town manager says to the employee, stay in your office all day and don't go out, and you go into the office and say to the employee, I want you to jump out the window right now. Well, you can't do that. You have to go to the town manager and ask the town manager to convince the town manager that he needs to do that. But in the end, when it comes to finances, the finance board can make decisions whether the town manager agrees or not. They can say you're getting a zero budget, or you're going to get a 5% reduction, or you're going to get a 10%, or you're going to get an increase. And we have some recommendations on how you can handle that. Now, in the past, as you know, with the selectmen, they sat there and they said, oh, cut out that over there, cut out that over there, cut out that over there. Well, it's no different now than it ever was before, I can tell you that, because I sat through many of those meetings, and I often thought it should be more bottom line orientated, and I do think that this new board of selectmen understands that, and they're working as closely as they can, but sooner or later, if they can't get the town manager to agree, and I don't know if that happens or not, I'm never there for that, then they direct them. Manage the town manager, direct the town manager. If he doesn't like it, he can resign. He can express his opinion and resign. Or he can, if he doesn't like it, which, sorry, I might have to sneeze here, but pardon me, I got that sneezy thing that's going around here. He can stay and try to get it done and maybe find out they were right all along. That's happened to me many times in my career where I didn't agree with my boss, but I did what he had to say, and I got on with it. And I often give the example here where I went into when I became a director of UNIVAC, before it was Unisys. I was about 28 years old, and I went to the boss and said, I want a 30% increase for my $500 million this year in the budget. And he said, Brian, you don't understand. We don't have any revenue to cover that. You're going to have to settle for a 1% increase for all your people. So I went back, we knocked together a plan for 1%. And the next year, rather than put a budget together that I couldn't have a chance of getting approved, I went to my boss, who was a senior vice president of the company, and finance man, and I said, what can I get this year? How much will revenue allow? And he said, well, this year you can get 0, or you can get 2% or 3% or whatever. And then I went off and planned for that. And sometimes he was wrong, and we had to go and move some money around from other areas of the company. And most often, he was right, because you can't spend more than you earn. There's a terrible lack of production of plans. They usually consist of objectives and timescales, and the execution of plans. Everybody around town says, hey, where's the plan for rolling out this $600,000 worth of roads? When are we going to do which road, by what time? The town garage is working on that plan, but they don't have it now. And we have to go ahead and get the budget approved. So maybe they'll have it before the budget day next weekend, and maybe they won't. But they lost their director of Public Works. We got a new finance board leader. There's all kinds of things happening in real time around us. So I know now, I've been told, that the acting director of the town garage is putting together a plan for the roads with milestones and who's going to do what, where, and when, and why with the $600,000, and then that'll be made public. And then we'll be able to review that frequently, because one of the big complaints of people in the town is, hey, some years we put it in and we never get any roads fixed. That kind of thing. And we have a terrible fiscal reputation. Don't believe me? Just put in Winston in Google on the internet. Take a look at all the articles all over the place. Talk to anybody wherever you go in Connecticut or even outside of Connecticut, and you'll get an earful. Now I'm going to put up another slide. I mean, I could go on, by the way, for hours about the Humpty Finance Board problems there. But now what I want to do is say that once Humpty Dumpty fell down, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. If you remember that when you were a child. My dad read that to me many times. When I was in England, of course, I heard it for 15 years over and over again. But we have to put Humpty Finance Board back together again. And we have a brilliant start now. A brilliant start. But before we talk about that, I want to say that everybody was pretty fed up last time with our finance board and our Board of Selectmen, and the majority at the time. And the Republicans pushed for, in their campaigning, to run for office. I'm unaffiliated, by the way, so don't tag me as a Republican or a Democrat. I'm unaffiliated. I'll go with people who do the right thing, no matter what party they're in. And don't forget, 52% of the people now are unaffiliated in our town as voters. So they ran on a platform that said they were going to have to do a supplemental tax, probably be about 3 mils. Former Finance Board member Lisa Smith won the election with 4 people from her party. And the 4 people, and she, of course, made up the Finance Board. Now, the reason I always mention Finance Board and hardly ever mention Selectmen is about 80-90% of our problems now in this town and the responsibilities and everything else lie with the Finance Board. There ain't many policy type decisions to be made, in my opinion. Other people disagree with me on that. But this is managing money, putting together plans with milestones and activities to timescales, and then managing that forward and making sure it either gets done or responsible decisions are made along the way to change it. We received a $2 million grant anticipation note. Everybody wanted that. Yeah, all parties wanted that. From a bank, a local bank, at a cost of $32,000 or so of your money, or so to be used to keep the schools open. Now, this coming year, we most likely won't have to pay that again because Jay Case, who's our representative, 63rd District, is getting it into law that they'll give us some more money in advance for the schools and less money at the back end next year. So we should be able to save that $32,000. And that money was used to keep the schools open. Remember, we had a big threat about the schools closing at the time. So that was a positive thing. It was done by everybody. And thanks to Jay Case, I just heard somebody on TV a while back saying that wasn't going to happen. But it happened, and I'm glad it did. We levied a 3 mil promised supplemental tax. We thought it was going to be more. It doesn't look perhaps like it might not be unless some more bad news comes up here in the next few months. That was about $2 million, 10% or so, 9.9 or 8%. One-time tax increase to pay many of the school overdue bills for the schools to their vendors. That's where it went, most of it. The town manager submitted an 8.2% increase budget to the selectmen for approval after being told they wanted less. He said, no, I'm going to put together this budget and give it to you. And he did so. The BOE was told to expect a 0 increase by the town manager. Matter of fact, I think he's told them to expect that for a few years to come. I would add even more to that, probably. Gilbert's doing some good work by getting people from around the world to help absorb some of their costs and expand into other areas. Now, then we had the bad news we thought was bad. Turned out not to be so bad in the end, but Lisa Smith resigned her office for personal reasons That was a big shock to everybody. Just a month and a half or so ago, I can't remember exactly. And another Republican, younger Republican, resigned for personal reasons and some problems evidently with the Republican Party. So two people left the finance board. The Republicans still had a majority. But Marcia Sterling and Glenn Albanese were appointed to the two vacant seats by the Republican Party, as kind of was traditionally done in the past. There's arguments about that, who did what, when, and where. But they appointed two people. One was Marcia Sterling and one was Glenn Albanese. Marcia was not a selectman before. She did run for office and didn't win. And Glenn Albanese ran, I'm going to talk a bit more about that, but ran for 2 terms, 4 years as a Republican. Didn't run this last time around because he didn't expect anybody, of course, to resign so quickly. So if you put up the next slide, I'm going to go over Marcia's background a little bit for you. I'll read it to you. She's a New England native. I think it's up somewhere around close to Maine. I'm not sure she was in Maine or not, but up in that area, Massachusetts or Maine. She grew up there, normal family, similar to the way we all grew up in those days. She has a computer science degree and an economics degree from Wellesley College, one of the best colleges in the country. One of the old Seven Sisters. They now have a relationship with MIT, so they also take some courses over there. And I believe that Marcia studied some of her math over at MIT, which I worked for a company up there that our offices were on the campus of MIT up in Massachusetts. She has a master's degree, as I told you before, from the University of Chicago Business School. She's been an investment planner. She's dealt with municipalities in the past, government-type municipalities. There are people who think she didn't, but she did. Over 20 years in the business. And then, with her husband, James Roberts, she retired to Winchester, Connecticut. James is also a financially very capable person, well educated, speaks many languages. And they have a nice little old farm on Grandview Road in Winchester, Connecticut. Been there quite a few years. And since being here, she's volunteered to help financially to organizations around the state, around the county especially. And she did a lot of investigating into our budgets here in the Board of Education and in the town. Now, it isn't easy to get information because a lot of people try to keep it away from you. Now she's in a position where she can get the information. And that's a big step forward for our town. She doesn't have to fight for it. She doesn't have to beg for it. She doesn't have to FOI it. She doesn't have to go. And she can do it in a legal way by going through the town manager when necessary, by going to the Board of Education when necessary. Doesn't mean she'll get it. But this is very, very important because how can you manage if you don't have information? Can't do it. And everybody wants us to manage professionally. Therefore, as I showed you in my slide, how to do things properly, it goes down the hill on the triangle, and you got to get all the problems on the table up front. So she's become very familiar with Winston's town and school finances over the last 8 to 10 years by going in there and trying to help people, Republicans, unaffiliated people, school board, whatever she could. She's been trying to help them over the time. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a bit about Glenn Albanese's background. He's also a Winston native, grew up here. He is a Winston native, I'm sorry. Marcia isn't, she grew up there in New England. He's a graduate of Oliver Wolcott Technical School, WTS, where I went for 2 years before I switched to high school and then off to college. He's a college graduate. He's an account manager and salesman with W.B. Mason Office Supplies. He's in business. He did also invent an unbreakable mailbox earlier in his life. He's got one in front of his house out in Winchester. Hit it with a baseball bat, you probably wouldn't bend it. I think he's still got the patent for that, if not more. And as I said, he's been a finance board member for 2 times, which is 4 years, 2 years each time. But he was in the minority all 4 years. Now he's in the majority. So he would be able to contribute more to the finance board with Marcia, his close neighbor, out in Grantville Road area of Winchester. Their appointments have been legally challenged by the Democratic Party and others, and the petition was raised for 300-400 signatures by state statute, and an election has been set for the 2 seats up in the September 19th time frame or so. So I'll be back on the air again, probably around August, September, and I'll talk to you a bit about that election and what my views are on that. People ask me all the time everywhere I go, and I go a lot of places, what do you think of this, Brian? What do you think of that? And they don't always agree with me, but we do discuss it, and I always find out something new when I talk to anybody. So the next slide, slide number 5, is what have the latest finance board accomplished in the few weeks that they have been aboard. I think I had a slide for that, but maybe I didn't. But anyway, they continue to enforce the finance board responsibilities stated in the charter. They promised to be fiscally responsible and actually transparent. Now, remember, you can't just be transparent. First, you got to get the information to make it transparent. And we don't have a lot of that information, like the audits aren't finished. We keep popping up new things in the old budgets and the new budgets and, new this, new that. Stuff's popping up all the time. And when somebody's been in here 3 or 4 months, it's pretty hard to expect them to know what all those things are. So you can't criticize them for that for another 3 or 4 months when they get a chance to get most of those things on the table. But I don't think even then we'll have it all on the table, because a lot of it happens by its event orientation. Nobody comes running to you and tells you all the problems. You have to dig them out. You have to dig them out and get them on the table and then address them. And there's a lot of digging involved. There's all kinds of techniques used, that kind of thing. They have included the town manager in all activities, giving direction to him where necessary, once facts examined where they could be. And it's not easy. If you go to a doctor and you get an examination, he asks you, hey, is there anything else wrong? Do you feel any tired? Do you sneeze a lot? Do you cough a lot? And you say, oh, I'm not going to tell him any of those answers. Then he won't know. But sooner or later, down the road, he'll go back there because you have a serious illness, and maybe that could have been helped earlier if you had been open and told the truth about everything. So they have included the town manager in all the activities, giving directions to him where necessary, once facts are examined where they could be. Well, we are working the timescales here, charter timescales for budgets, and if somebody's gone for a week, it's pretty hard to work with them if they're not here. They've reduced the town manager proposed budget from an 8.2% tax increase to a 2.28% tax increase. That's a big help for you. It brings it down into sort of what we would call, in normal circumstances, kind of within inflation type numbers, which are average about that over the last 10 years or so, a little more, a little less. But of course, we have a lot of restructuring to do in this town. This town was built on 80 miles of roads, 80 factories. I think it's 80 miles of roads. I might be wrong on that, but a little less. But 80 factories, got bridges all over the place, roads all over the place that are old and need repair. That's what the $12 million comes in. And for the infrastructure work that needs to be done. And we don't have the factories anymore. Maybe 10 factories, 8 12, I don't know. Some aren't done on that. And we don't not very good at getting new ones in, and some are still moving out. Two or three moved out last year. Now we want to become an art town. Best I know, you don't make a lot of money being an art town. To have an art section, that's great. Have art stores, that's great. Have a Wall of America, that's all great. But you got to get in extra revenue to help pay for all these roads, bridges, or maybe you should shut down some of the bridges, shut down some of the roads. Somebody's got to take a good hard look at all this stuff and see, do we really need it anymore? When we started, it was horse and carriage and people walking to work from downtown all the time. Now it's a little different. I don't know the answer, but that all has to be looked in by the finance board and the management of the town. The budget's been approved at the town meeting, and they didn't cut it. I guess there were about 90 people there. Some spoke against, some spoke in favor. But it does seem to be more people working together now than perhaps did in the past. Some people that were saying no this time are saying yes because they think it's reasonable. They didn't want the 8.2. They do think spending money on the roads is the way to go. They do think that the new finance board is going to make a big difference in this town if they stay, and they're encouraged to, and we don't tie them down with 8 referendums to get a budget passed. I don't think too many people want an 8.2% increase, no matter what. They just had a 10% increase, one-time increase, and they had an increase last year of 1 mil. They uncovered many inaccuracies in this year's budget, previous year's budgets, next year's proposed budget. These figures are all, nobody trusts any of them. So the finance board's working hard to try to get to the bottom, and you watch every select meeting, you'll see where they'll say, oh, we found that we're not getting this amount of revenue in, 100,000 or 200,000. Oh, we got these many more expenses than we had figured on. That happens almost every meeting. There will be a time when that won't happen. And part of the reason there'll be a time when that won't happen as much is because this new finance board has established a 3-person bi-weekly financial review meeting with the mayor on there as one of the people, and somebody from the Democratic Party and somebody from the Republican Party to surface and understand the problems, recommending decisions where and when necessary. So that's a financial review board. Isn't that wonderful? They meet every other week, the 3 of them, and they go over it with the accounting person, financial director, or whoever they have to deal with. And they try to get to the bottom line, try to find out what's really going on. We go from here. They've also established a biweekly grand list growth initiative. That'll have more people on it. Again, the mayor will be on that most likely, the town manager probably, and they will try to speed up getting this additional profitable recurring revenue into our town. And again, profitable means we get more tax revenue in than we spend on services to whoever it is that pays the taxes. For example, if they have 4 children in a school system, then they cost more than they bring in. If they have no children in the school system, then we probably can use their money, their tax money, to pay for some of the 4 children in the other family. So that's how it works. And the last I knew, each family in our town has about 0.9 children. Not like it used to be when I was a child, and the average was much higher than that. So they've established a biweekly grand list growth initiative, and they're making tough decisions. And you'll see that at every select meeting if you can stand to watch them. They're tough. Sometimes you got to sit through award ceremonies and other things like that. But they're moving. They're doing a good job. They froze spending just this week where necessary to achieve this year's expense budget. They froze expenses. They went through and they found out that we don't have to pay certain things to the town garage director. We don't have to pay certain things to the finance director, that like benefits and things. We don't have to pay people who left and aren't here. We don't have to pay for that. So they went in there. But the reason they froze the spending because they found out that we had either less revenue or more expenses than we thought we had last week. And this is going to happen for quite a while now until everybody gets the facts on the table, the truth is there, we have the right tools to do it where necessary, And everybody's open and honest about this. Now, there is a tendency on the finance board for some people to try to hide the facts and other people to try to get them out in the open. That's what happens when you have a two-party system. So there's always a push and a pull. Now, also, we got this top-notch finance mayor here. She really knows her business. She can talk to any financial person in the country. If I put her on to some of the people I knew down at Princeton, the other great financial school in the country, she'd be able to communicate with them with no problem whatsoever. She speaks their language, they speak her language, and she can deal with all kinds of connections in around the East and in the country and overseas, and she can speak their language. The two Democrats, I'm afraid, can't do it, and some of the other Republicans can't either. They're young kids, they're getting started. They have a lot to learn from Marcia Sterling. So if I message to the Republicans, the other four, including Albanese and all, I know he's close to her, learn from Marcia. Talk to Marcia, ask her questions, get advice from her, and it's better going to be as good as an undergraduate college degree by the time you're done if you can stick it out with her. And if she can stick out for 4 or 5 years, that it's going to take to get the job done. So not only will we have to vote her, we have to vote this budget, we got to get her back in office so she can come up with a good budget for the following year. We got to get her back in office so she'll get have to run again next year, so we got to get her back again next year. That's 2 back agains, and then maybe 1 more back again. And then by then, she might be able to get the job accomplished unless she slips into the minority, and then nothing will happen. So I want to tell you, once again, I'm voting yes. I want to get on with getting this town squared away, and I'm getting closer and closer to 100 every year, so I don't want it to go on forever. To fix your roads, to get on with the budgeting and the management practice, and to make our town successful so that we can be proud of it once again like we have been over the last many, many years. So I'm going to be closing in a few minutes, but I do want to say that you cannot sit back. You got to vote. Voting is critical. And if you can talk 30 people into voting, do that. If you can drag them down in your car, truck, or bus, do that. Because there will be out people there doing the same thing, trying to get them to vote no on this budget. Because they really don't understand the finances the way Marcia does in the financial industry. And we are a business, says so on the charter. And in the charter it says that the finance board is responsible for the finances of this town. And it states in there what is and what is not micromanagement. They have to manage. They have to manage the town manager. And he's only 20% of the budget. We got to keep these people in there until we can get also control of the Board of Education majority. Then we can go in and look at their 60% of the budget, and we can deal with the state. And we can find out where the redundancies are, where the duplications are, what do we do with the schools. We can do all that. So with that, I'm just going to put the vote yes sign back up till the end of the program. I'm going to encourage you to take that day next Saturday. Take your children with you. Take your husband, your grandmother, your uncles, your friends. Let's get everybody down there and let's get Winsted put back together again. Thank you very much.